order of the Board of Selectmen special meeting tonight, following our public hearing. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I have this agenda.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first item on the agenda is just for the public's benefit. We tried to get this taken care of tonight since the Vista people are graduating in 2 weeks before our last meeting, so Warren just threw this on to get this taken care of. So discuss and take action to approve proclamations honoring the Vista class of 2021. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, great, and I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas on Friday, August 20th, 2021, Vista Life Innovations will hold its 2021 graduation ceremony. And whereas the class of 2021 worked hard to learn the skills necessary to live independently, and whereas the students of the 2021 graduating class remain focused during these uncertain times, now thereof, we, the members of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Madison, hereby unanimously acknowledge the achievements of Maya Bachman, Daniel Herskowitz, Donald MacGyver, Catherine Saviano, and Simon Watson, done this third day of August 2021 in the town of Madison. So congratulations to the Vista graduates. I'll be attending their graduation ceremony and presenting these in person, but all in favor of this proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So thank you very much. We got that, and great group of students, and another educational facility in Madison that is adds a lot to our community, I think. So this is a great organization. Moving on to item number 3, discuss and take action to approve a recommended proposal for the Island Avenue School and to authorize the first select woman to initiate a purchase and sale agreement process.
So moved. Peggy, I'd like to make a motion that I know we need to discuss each of the proposals that's in front of us, but I think to get us started, I'm going to make a motion that we move forward with the proposal given us to the Our Lady of Mercy Preparatory Academy.
I think just as a point of order, we probably need to stick to the agenda that we've got. As a special meeting, we need to.
Well, he's amending, I think, the motion I had, right? Because right now it just says recommend a proposal. So
Yeah,
he's saying let's talk.
I'm trying to give us some direction here, Bruce. The way this motion is worded, we're going to need a second motion at some point.
It just recommend a proposal. So, I mean, we can have the same discussion under.
Yeah, it's the same
motion.
discussion.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give us some direction here. Otherwise, we're going to have a discussion and then we're going to have to do a motion to move one of them forward. Because this isn't identifying the one.
Discuss and take action to approve a recommended proposal. So you don't think it gives us the opportunity to acknowledge the 3 proposals and then pick one? Is that?
Well, then we're going to have to make another motion to pick one.
So he's just amending it so that we do it all, we have the discussion as part of one recommendation. That's all, because we have to compare them anyway. That's all it's doing, to save us having to add another motion. I mean, well, why don't we'll just go with
I don't want to have to talk a war over it.
I find myself more and more, I'm just confused, so maybe just help me get back up to speed to where you're at.
Okay, I think the end point we're trying to get to is to pick one.
Right?
And this motion doesn't pick one. This just says we're going to have a discussion. At some point, we're going to have to end our discussion and say, okay, the 5 of us have to pick one. And someone's going to have to make a motion at that point, which one are we going to pick?
Okay, I just figured that was part of the motion, that was embedded in this motion was the discussion and then the choosing.
Okay,
so
at some point, we're going to have to vote.
Right, as part of
There's
this.
nothing to vote on here.
Recommend a proposal. So
To
why don't,
approve a
I mean, either way, we have to have a discussion of all the proposals.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So all we're doing is opening up for discussion.
So then can we agree that the interpretation of this agenda item allows us to ultimately pick a proposal? And then we can
Yes.
and then we can
Yes.
stick to the agenda.
Yes.
I think,
That's fine, let's not get stuck on
I
this.
I
Yeah,
just- I
I mean,
worry-
we can, like, look, why don't we just go with what I
Yeah,
read,
that's
okay?
fine.
Yeah.
And then we can at the end say this is the one we're gonna recommend, okay?
Right.
It's just trying to be a little more expedient. So as, can I, get a second on the motion that I just read, discuss and take action to
I'll
approve
second
the
it.
recommendation? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I,
Discussion.
Hey, there's Scott.
I'm here. I am here.
Welcome, Scott.
I've been here the whole time.
I know, he's been listening very patiently. Okay, so I guess then I ask, based on, if board members want to weigh in on some comments about their thoughts on the three proposals, or if there's a recommendation to move forward with one of the proposals.
Well, I think we know where I'll stand.
I know, so,
Well, look,
I don't know if you want to.
I'm happy to go first.
Yeah.
I don't need to go first. Okay, I'll start. I think the.
Do you guys mind if I go real quick?
You've talked too much this meeting, Scott.
Because we're not off to a good start here.
I think the OLM prep proposal meets a number of tests which I think are important to the voters. In terms of the pricing, it is the only proposal that is given as fair market value, and certainly from a net present value point of view, it seems to be the winner. So from a financial point of view, I believe it's the most attractive proposal. The second criteria I was applying, this is just my criteria, is acceptability to the community and to the neighborhood. And I believe this school has been a good neighbor and an asset to the community. I'm not aware of any significant criticism over the operation of this school. And so, based on the findings of our Island Avenue Advisory Committee, who conducted the poll, this seemed to be the choice of the folks that responded to that poll. My third criteria is the likelihood of a timely sale. And that is to say, this is the proposal that I think can be carried to completion most expeditiously, quickly, and with the least amount of known unknowns complicating things. And of course, I'm referring to the air requirements here. Two of the proposals are going to require, I think, potential difficulty with the heirs who would have an opportunity. I believe one of the proposals from the developers is at $250,000. The other one is at $300,000. And I could see the heirs finding that to be financially worthwhile for them to execute their right to buy the property. And once the heirs get involved and potentially buy that property, I think we, the town, lose certain control over what happens next. I think the OLM prep proposal of $2.3 million is a much bigger nut for the heirs to potentially choose to exercise their right. And so I believe this would be the cleanest transaction that would happen quickest and would get this resolved and get the money in the town's treasury much more quickly than the other two proposals from the developers. So those were the four criteria that were important to me, and that's why I would, I'm interested to hear what everybody else has to say, but that's what's in my mind at the moment.
Okay.
Scott, do you want to go next?
I'm happy to just chime in. I mean, I guess I want to echo many of the points that Al stated with respect to the financials, the net present value, making an immediate impact on our town, and certainly the tax implications as well. I'm also, I guess, another point that resonated to me about the OLM prep proposal was the notion of change management. That we're not going to change much of the streets, the facade, the structure, things that are important to that community, not to mention that it's been a school for 70 years. And And that was something that was very important to the heirs as they laid it out, in the deed restrictions. So I think those are pretty important points that we should be considering as a Board of Selectmen. I also think there's an aspect of the community, and I know Vlad and John and team have been forward with us multiple times talking about the wonderful impact of the school on our local businesses and our community. And I just think that's an important thing that we should be considering here as the Board of Selectmen. I think it enhances our community. It adds diversity to our community. And I think it brings families into our community to celebrate the power of Madison. It just feels like the right answer to me.
Okay, great. Bruce or Aaron?
I'll go next. So I've had the privilege of serving almost the entire time that OLM Prep has been in existence, and it's been an interesting journey from there to here, and really a nice one overall. In the early days, there were lots of questions about what the viability of the school was going to be in the face of declining enrollment everywhere, right? Not just in private schools. And we fast forward to now, and we see that that enrollment has rebounded to historic levels, or at least recent history levels. We've had the opportunity to see the neighbor that OLM Prep is in town. And I think sometimes as a community, we get a little too seduced by the dollar signs. And I understand the dollar signs, they're easy to count, right? We can look at money and we can say, oh, we know what that is. But we don't often spend time thinking about the intangible benefits to the community. Madison is a community fundamentally anchored by the quality of its schools, its public schools, its private schools. It is at its core the engine that drives not only the housing market in town, but the quality of life market in town. And I think the addition of this school certainly is in service of that in our community. So I think my thinking on OLM Prep and the fate of Island has shifted over time. I'm very comfortable where it's arrived at. I think that OLM Prep is really the right long-term resident for the schools. We have a lot of ground to cover. We have diligence work that we need to do. But when I think about these other proposals and the intangibles with them, certainly the affordable housing proposal brings a lot of wonderful intangibles to the community. I'm concerned that by their own admission, they can't do a smaller project, and that project is not going to sustain that many bedrooms on that land from a septic system perspective. And I think to go down that path with a false presumption that we can get the 70 units and all of the bedrooms that go with that and the accompanying septic, I just don't think it's the right spot for them. It would be wonderful to try to keep them engaged and find another home for a project like that in Madison, because they're far and away the best proposal we've seen for that type of development. But for this property, for this moment, I think that it's in the town's best interest to move forward in good faith with OLM Prep. The financial reasons are compelling, but I think the intangible reasons are even more compelling for me. So that's where I'm at.
Being a lawyer, it's a little hard to operate without some agreed upon criteria on how we're evaluating, because everyone's kind of just coming up. But I did note that in Felicia's initial presentation, she noted 3 things that were in the RFP.
Right.
Except that I only caught 2, but
I have them right here.
economic benefit, quality
Finance
of
and
life.
priorities,
So can you
selection
read them?
criteria. This was the RFP that you received a copy of, but I can read
Right,
them.
no,
if you want.
but I did read that.
Okay.
But there were 3: quality of life, economic benefit. These are the ones that she highlighted, which I thought were
Yeah.
really good as far as.
Consistency with residents' input on the potential use.
Right. So I think from that, and I also just want to say that I serve with Sarah on the Affordable Housing Committee. And so the proposal by Beacon is something I think is a great concept.
Yeah.
And I think that we as a town in earnest need to look for opportunities for affordable housing. I don't think that because if we go back to the economic benefits criteria, I don't think that proposal fits because of that location of that property and the value of that property. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So that sort of gets that kind of off the table for me. The Newport, I think it seems like the economic benefits would catch up in 10 years, but that's not counting the time value of money, which I understand. But I think that we do know everything that you all said about OLM Prep, that it's a great member of our community. It's well liked by the neighbors. It provides a lot of value to our community. So I think from that perspective, kind of checks all the boxes. I do have questions because I think in reading your response, I didn't realize that the owner was not going to be OLM Prep. The owner is going to be the separate entity, which I don't really know anything about. So that kind of causes me a little bit of pause that we don't know anything about that entity. But I don't know if that's something that we could just, and how the heirs might view it. Because I don't know anything about the entity. So I think that I don't know if that's something that could be just worked out as part of the, those pieces, but I just feel in my position on this board that I did want to note that did cause me some pause. But as far as the other aspects, I think that OLM, like I said, it checks all the boxes of the criteria for the proposal or the RFP.
I think that, as we talked about a little bit before, all we're deciding tonight is to start the process, the negotiation process. So part of that is going to involve more due diligence, addressing some of these issues about the fact that the town wants a right of first refusal, so that's going to be part of that negotiation process. I think understanding more the ramifications of who the entity is, the financial backing of the entity, all those things. So tonight is more about starting that negotiation process with one party versus trying to, have three of us going in, different directions. So I didn't want to finish it, or you finished?
No, I just wanted to add one thing, which is that the right of first refusal, I think, it's right in our face. I mean, I don't think we even have much of an option, quite frankly. But
well, it's funny because when I kind of wrote this down, I had obviously the money piece of this, the purchase price piece, is obviously cash now versus maybe a payoff in the future. And you can do that. I did my own net present value, and I said, 30 years at these tax rates, maybe we break even with the developer versus own. It just depends on your assumptions. But really the one that rises to the top, just wearing a transaction hat, is the completion risk factor here is huge, absolutely huge. And some of the questions that came from the audience earlier about this, like, why did we even bother with this process? We bothered because we didn't know what the value of the property was going to be. What if it had been flipped? What if it had been the developer bid $2.3 million and OLM bid $300,000? So the heirs would have to match the $2.3 million. So the heirs don't get to pick who buys it; they just have to match the offer that's presented. So we didn't know what those offers were going to look like, and so it was important, I think, to go through that process. Also, and I think we all talked about, the value of that property is significant because of the location, and we're also in one of the hottest real estate markets, that Madison has ever seen. So I was kind of surprised, to be honest, that we didn't get more people bidding. But then, who wants to spend a lot of time on something where there's this right of first refusal that can swoop in and kind of, possibly disrupt a deal? We don't know the financial means of the heirs who have submitted the letter saying that they would want to, so we don't know any of that. But there's a completion risk for anybody involved, and that people want to spend a lot of time and money developers, it costs them money to take this through a process. And so, so I think that the completion risks, to me, you know, kind of made this, we had to kind of go down this path with the OLM. And obviously the purchase price, which is full market value for what the town feels it's worth. But then I think even overriding all of this is all the intangibles we've all talked about. The benefits of having the school as part of our community, that it's part of the neighborhood, it's part of the fabric of Madison, and it's the least disruptive. And I think we've seen in this town in the last year, a lot of people are concerned about development and that the town is moving in a different direction. And so this, you know, is a known entity that has been in that community, in that neighborhood for how many years now? 7 years. So, and so there's community, I think, general community comfort with that. The survey supported that as well. So those three items, I think, made it, to me, very clear that this is the right step, is to go forward. And once again, there's gonna be a lot more hurdles to go over, but to start that negotiation process, address some of these concerns, the due diligence issues, right of first refusal, how do we protect the town? And I just wanna say that the reason we wanna keep that right of first refusal is that, you know, depending on what the property owner decides 10, 15, 20 years from now, we wanna have some ability to control that and have a right to get it back possibly, because it is something that has a lot of, you know, community history and people care about that property, and it's just an, you know, important part of our town. So, so I think that, I guess we seem to be in agreement, that we wanna move forward.
I'm hearing violent agreement.
So, so Al, your motion was,
Can I just ask just
yeah.
procedurally, so
Yeah.
if we approve the motion and then when some of these things get fleshed out, is there a possible opportunity that, or is it possible that we decide that it's not for, you know, we have to change course?
Yeah,
Or are we
because-
stuck, are we?
So it's not a deal until it's a deal,
Yeah,
right?
right, this is just
And-
negotiating a contract now, allowing you to go forward and negotiate. You guys vote on the contract. And also, it's gonna ultimately go to the referendum.
Right, right. So if we could talk a little bit about the negotiation process in the confines of this motion. I would like us to come up with some sort of process internally where we can meet and stay up to date on what's going. These would be executive sessions, obviously, as you enter into negotiations where we can be kept abreast of.
We did that throughout the whole lease negotiation process.
Right, so I'm just saying.
Which I think we had probably 10 executive sessions on the lease, so as long as you're committed to that discussion, a level of dedication to the negotiation. But of course, is, you know, the last thing you want to do is come back and have something not approved by the board, right? You know, that doesn't serve anybody.
Right. And then to, I think, Al's prior point about speed, to the extent that we can identify a path that makes this happen as quickly as possible. And by this, I mean getting this in front of either a town meeting or if we can, if we're allowed, for some form of referendum, sooner rather than later. I think, like you said, this probably represents the fastest path to a transaction, and we should do everything we can do to make sure that it happens.
The other two items on the agenda are other steps that we will be voting to move this proposal. By choosing one, it expedites those other steps. So, and that's the going to planning and zoning, and then the Board of Finance review. So those are all hurdles, but at least if you vote to move the proposal forward, that can start. That'll get on those agendas.
Do you go to Board of Finance before negotiating the terms?
It's a review. So technically, the Board of Finance, because this is not a bonding referendum, does not have to vote on this. But in past practices, we've sent these types of things to the Board of Finance. So we're going to have them weigh in. And obviously, the Board of Finance has been kept abreast of this process, and Phil Moore, who sits on the Board of Finance, asked a lot of questions, and we have, so You know, I think.
And I think
yeah.
ours is a more strategic
Yeah.
position,
Yeah.
and then theirs is more a review of the finances, right? Because there's a lot of that discussion that still needs to happen.
It's an ongoing commitment for the town from a budgetary standpoint,
Right.
especially some of the things that Fillmore highlighted, there would be an obligation for the transportation and nursing services to continue, so that's why it's relevant that the Board of Finance reviews it.
Right, but I'm saying is that we don't have the numbers now, so what are they reviewing until
Well, we're not gonna have any final numbers on anything until after a deal closes, to be honest, because the assessor can't give us a value, so all we can do is kind of estimate and give rough ideas about, you know, what we think is a possibility. You know, as with any kind of assessment situation, or, you know, planning and zoning obviously has to go through this, and they've already technically approved the use because they did a review of this prior to the lease, it went through planning and zoning, but this is a formality that we have to go through. It would be different, I think, if we were recommending residential development proposals, so.
Right, I think that motion, item 5, is really putting Board of Finance on notice that this is the path we're taking.
Yeah.
They can begin to do their homework on it and then be prepared to catch the proposals as it comes through, but I think it's important that they see it.
Yeah, and I think also I want to flush out a little bit more the steps prior, if we go to referendum, the voting, because this is different from what we've said, other things, you know, this is not a bonding.
So divesting property is not necessarily required to be a referendum. It would typically be handled at a town meeting. And we just need to make sure that we're not misinterpreting the charter, but I hope we're not. I would.
I don't think it's a misinterpretation, it was presented to the public that such a substantial divestment of an asset of this size deserved a referendum. That was precedent was set by Academy. So that's why it was talked that Island would be a referendum. So, because it's the same situation. The town has never disposed of anything of this size before, so.
So I would propose, for the sake of this motion, that our vote yes on item 3 is to approve recommending the OLM prep path forward.
Proposal, and authorize first selectman to initiate a purchase and sale agreement process with OLM Prep,
Yes.
or the entity.
I'll second that.
Acquiring entity. Okay, there's a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Aye for the.
All right, so real quickly, the next two would be the same.
I said aye.
We heard it. Discuss and take action to approve requesting the Planning and Zoning Commission review the recommended proposal from OLM Prep for the Island Avenue School in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Sections 824.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And then,
Aye.
okay. All right, number 5, discuss and take action to approve requesting the Board of Finance review the recommended proposal from OLM Prep for the Island Avenue School.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
great, thank you. And then citizens' comments?
Thank you.
Any citizens' comments online, Lauren?
No one has their hand raised.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, thank you, meeting is adjourned, all in favor. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, I'll meet you again.
This feels like a Board of Ed meeting.
All right, thank you, yep,
Well, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Great presentation.
okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.